everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Destination Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Stoker, and I've got a really fun show for you today. Those that are watching, the cat's out of the bag already. My guest who will join the conversation in just a minute, his name is Caleb Sullivan, and I'm really excited to have him here. But before we bring him in, I thought it was a timely opportunity to talk about something that's been necessary for us to have. It's an uncomfortable conversation for us to have in the destination marketing space, but I think it's time. I talked last week about what Claude Cowork has done for me from an automation perspective over the last 10 days. And what it's basically created is that this future we've been talking about for a very long time is finally here, where some of the commoditization of products in our industry is going to happen. And it's time to have a value discussion in the vendor-client dynamic in an AI world. Because so much of what we are experiencing in the vendor-client dynamic is going to change and has been changing, and the time for that change is now. So first of all, I just want to big picture talk about there's 5 or 6 different vendor categories that I would put as the primary vendor categories in our space. We've got research vendors, data vendors, agency vendors, software partners, and consulting partners as well. And all of these, and I'm sure there's more, but those are kind of the main categories that as I was planning for this episode, that I wanted to talk about, because these vendors provide such an important role in the destination marketing atmosphere that it's really critical that we understand on both sides, both the client side and the vendor side, what needs to change in the coming years with the changes that we're experiencing in AI. So first of all, why do these vendors exist? Why do these partnerships exist? Destinations, for the most part, have an inability to create massive innovation, technology innovation, or process innovation, because they can't see beyond the individual destination in a lot of cases. It's hard for a destination to say, okay, we have this problem to solve. We're going to scale the solution to this problem to the entire industry, sell it to other DMOs. That's not really how it works. It's very difficult for a DMO to do that. So they need somebody that can solve a problem and then monetize the solution to that problem across the whole space. And that's the only thing that makes the building of solutions economical for all parties involved, right? So innovation is really important. The scalability of products. Strategy is another thing that's really important. A lot of destinations only have the context of their destination. They need help building a strategy that sees beyond just what happens in that specific destination, that can leverage experience from many other destinations and bring the value of strategy that you would have a hard time building in-house. A lot of times, too, we get so emotionally tied up in our product, in our destination, that building strategy with no emotion attached to it is very difficult to do. And sometimes an outside set of eyes can do a really good job with that. And I would say agency and consulting partners most definitely fall into that category from a vendor perspective. Sometimes we have vendors in the space that we're checking a box. There's certain things in our charter or things that we are required to do, and if we check that box, we're not going to get any pushback from the board. I think that part's going to go away, but that is happening right now a little bit in the space. And then, of course, if there's expertise that's unable to be achieved or gathered from somewhere else, it's great to have a vendor that's able to bring that to the table. Now, that's the DMO side of the partnership. What do vendors need? Vendors need clients with trust and vision, who will basically buy off on an idea and then patiently test and work through the idea until it gets to the point where not only does it work for that destination, but it could work for other destinations. And the reason they have to have patience and trust and vision with a vendor partner is that version 1 is never as good as it needs to be. So somebody's got to be willing to be the guinea pig, right? And so vendors need somebody that's willing to do that. Vendors need a true partnership where the conversation flows both ways, where both sides are honest and authentic with each other. And then vendors need word of mouth. If something goes really well for you, vendors need you to share that information with other destinations so that they can continue to experience both growth and profit. Because, of course, if vendors aren't experiencing growth and profit, they're not going to be able to sustain their efforts in the space. So why do I set the table with that? there's so much changing. Okay. So when you think about what's happening in the industry, first of all, data is readily available in places that it has not been available before. You can access data with AI in a variety of different ways. Research, readily available. The things that I've been able to do from a research perspective with Claude Cowork is unbelievable if you know how to prompt it correctly and work through it correctly. So agency services are also getting commoditized. I mean, you can do so many things that you used to pay an agency to do today with AI that you just couldn't do before. And then the software barrier is decreasing. And what I mean by that is if you can build software with AI, it no longer takes $500,000 to get to your minimum viable product. You can go from idea to execution in a much shorter period of time. So that moat for software companies is getting a lot smaller. So with these changes, I think it's really important that we start asking, why do we hire vendors and partners? And does our financial relationship with those vendor partners represent where the value is coming from? So one of the biggest examples that I'll share is in the agency side of things, which obviously I know better than any other vendor category because that's the category that I work in. I would say at scale, 70% or so, and I actually had a little bit of a conversation with Caleb and his co-host on his show, Give Me Some Good News, about this exact topic. I said that, 70% of the revenue right now that's being paid to agencies in the destination marketing space is tied to media buying because that money goes to media and then a commission goes to the agency as a result. And that's one of the biggest profit centers for agencies. But in this changing dynamic that's happening right now, the value the destination is getting from the actual placement of the media is going down significantly. And so I think it's time for a resetting of the relationship to make sure that the financial structure of the relationship represents the value needed by the destination and the value created or provided from the vendor. And if that reset doesn't happen, we're going to have some real uncomfortable clashes between destination marketing organizations and the vendors who serve them. And I think a lot of people, conventional wisdom would say, well, that's on the vendors to figure out. The problem with putting it entirely on the vendors to figure out and not working through it with them is it goes back to the original innovation. They need to understand where the value has to come from so that they can build around that value for you as a destination. And so as we build kind of the next generation of vendor-client relationships in the destination marketing space, I think it's really important for destinations to choose the strategic partners in each of the categories that I mentioned that are going to provide the most value to them through this transition. Who can work through this transfer of value creation that's going to happen over the next year together with destinations and maximize the value provided on the other side, which is going to require some trial and error on the financial relationship and some strain on the financial relationship. But in the end, I think it all boils down to what is the value this vendor or product provides for you as a destination? If data is easily accessible, if research is easily accessible, what actually matters is the guidance, analysis, and partnership that can be leveraged from whatever it is you're hiring that vendor for, whether it's agency services, consulting services, data services, research services, whatever it is. There's a shift happening. And it's time for the uncomfortable conversation to happen between the destination and each of the vendors that you work with. And I think as you initiate the conversation, you'll see which vendors are working on that transition, a healthy transition of value, and which ones are trying to hold on to the past as long as they can. And as you go through those uncomfortable conversations, you're going to find the partners who are going to be able to guide us into the future for the destination marketing industry. And I think that's going to be an incredible exercise for you to go through to make sure that in this age of AI, the vendor-client dynamic remains healthy for both sides. And with that, I really want to welcome in Caleb Sullivan. Caleb, you and I have been friends for a long time. We've recently done a podcast together, whether it's on Destination Discourse, whether it's on Give Me Some Good News, your podcast, but I believe it's your first time on the Destination Marketing Podcast. Is that correct?
You know, it is. And funny thing, This is a big deal for me. So, I love podcasting. I love, being on different podcasts like Destination Discourse, but I've been listening to this podcast every week since I was essentially new in the industry. So,
No way.
yeah. There's no Desty, if you will, for Destination Marketing Podcast listeners, but I would be considered a Desty of this podcast. And I'm thrilled to be on this show, Adam.
Oh, that's so cool. Well, we've got a topic we're gonna jump into. I think it ties off fairly well with my monologue here at the beginning. We're gonna talk about RFPs, but before we do that, I'd love to get your initial reactions. You've been on both the client side and the vendor side. Also, it's important that we mention that you're in the middle of a career transition right now from one organization to another. So maybe tell us what that change is, and then react to the monologue that I started at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, so my career is interesting in that I've really worked on every side of I think what I've called our previous podcast, like the holy trinity of destination marketing. So I've worked for a DMO, I've worked for a media vendor partner, and now and then I went and worked at an ad agency. So I kind of understand the relationship in a unique set of ways. But what I'm excited about now with this new transition is I took some time, I kind of did a little bit of soul searching, and I was like, what is it I truly enjoy doing in this industry? And going right off of this monologue is I enjoy solving problems for destinations, right? So in the beginning, when I was at the DMO, I was constantly solving problems for our DMO. When I was at Carvertise, the only way I was able to really be successful is by listening to destinations and solving their problems through the solutions we were offering. And so I took a new role with Datafy, so I'll be starting there as we're recording a week from today. And again, it is kind of to your point, who are the vendor partners that are going to be moving the needle? Who are the ones that are going to be looking at 2026, 2027, and 2028 and trying to lay the foundation for a more successful and equitable future for DMOs? And so I threw my lot in with them. I'm really excited to get to work and really excited to start solving more problems for more DMOs at a bigger scale.
I love it. So what about this dynamic that needs to happen, or that, well, not that needs to happen, but the dynamic that we're experiencing and the future that we're headed towards in the agency client dynamic, or not agency, even vendor client dynamic in general? What's your evaluation of the state of things?
One of the things, and I'm working on this now, so you kind of talked about our podcast, but I also wrote a Substack. It's called Caleb Talks Tourism, and this will be on Substack by the time this goes live. But I'm working on something I call the friendship economy of destination marketing. So what it is it's calling a spade a spade. It's looking at our industry as a whole, looking at the relationships that fuel our industry and make them successful, and it's really being honest about those relationships and saying, how can we optimize, how can we problem solve together as partners, as opposed to cutting a check and moving on as what I would consider a vendor. Barbara Karasik, who I used to work for at Paradise, had this great ism. She would say, if you want a vendor, go find a vending machine. If you want a partner, come work with us. And I love that mindset, and I've carried that with me. And so one of the things that I see as a larger issue that I wrote about, and I know that it's an issue when I get the kind of feedback I got, right? And that is a good thing. So on Substack, I wrote an article called "RFPs Need to Die for DMOs: Why Our Industry Deserves Better Than the RFP Process." And we can kind of dive into that a little bit, but I think when we're talking about vendor, partner relationships with the DMOs, unfortunately, it starts a lot of times with a RFP process that goes through a procurement officer, right? And so I looked at this process. I started with this agency, and I was doing a lot of RFPs, and I was like, why are we doing these? At the end of the day, not that there's a right or wrong answer. Everyone's got their own specific reasons. Every DMO is different, but the fundamental question of why are we doing this process kind of kept striking a chord with me. So I did a little bit of digging, and DMOs as an industry, I know a lot of times it has been told and said, not just coming from me, that we can be a little slower to adopt things. And the RFP, the procurement process, actually comes out of really around the turn of the century. So talk about being a little late to the party. It kind of started around the 1880s. So for us, it's obviously evolved throughout that time, a lot of evolution through World War II, but it was originally designed for procuring military equipment for different governments. And so it really was supposed to be, and I think at its core, what it's meant to be is a fair analytical process by which DMOs and government agencies secure relationships. That's all fine and good in a lot of instances. If I'm providing paper towels to a government building, as a government, you're going to want the best paper towels at the best price possible. So you're going to be kind of opting for the lowest price. However, when we're talking about something as unique, and I think anyone listening to this podcast who is in a destination marketing organization will agree that the DMO as a government entity is very unique. And what is unique needs to be treated as such. And so that can be a tricky process. However, we need to look at our procurement process totally differently than traditional government organizations. And so it's really hard. Someone who works in procurement who sees a destination marketing agency RFP, for example, that's going to be a lot different than looking at a paper towel RFP for a government building. So we need to really get real about these conversations and start having them. And I was perfectly happy to be the guy to rip the Band-Aid. I know that some of these conversations have been happening behind closed doors, but I just wanted to get it out there and see, what the response was from the industry. Because at the end of the day, if we're going to be building the DMO of the future, we also have to future-proof our procurement process. Because if you can't get the right partner for you, then why are you even going to RFP in the first place? And so that was kind of my spiel, if you will. We can dive more into it. But at the end of the day, it was a spicy title, but the format was to be really a love letter to the industry. Like, guys, the DMO industry deserves better than a procurement process. So where can we, as vendor partners and DMOs, meet in the middle and create a solution that is process driven, that is going to make the biggest difference and the biggest impact for DMOs and future proof them as an institution.
Yeah, I really appreciated your article. I've also when it comes to RFPs, I've talked a lot about what I think is broken in the RFP process. And I do think that the RFP process is entirely broken for destinations. And you made a great analogy too. If you're buying paper towels for a government entity, it makes sense to make sure you're comparing apples to apples and get all the exact specs set up correctly so that a paper towel vendor can put the bid together and show you who's going to be the best price. It makes perfect sense. The problem is when you try to translate that into almost anything related to destination marketing, beyond just agency relationships, but just most vendor partnerships in general, what you're actually doing by writing the RFP in an attempt to get apples to apples comparisons, you're devaluing the work that the destination marketing organization actually does itself. Because if you're boiling it down into this list of very specific and clearly outlined tactics, you're completely removing the opportunity for strategy, and you're actually removing the value that you provide to the destination as a destination marketing organization. Because what you're basically saying is, this is the tactics that we're going to be planning for the next 2 to 3 years, because most of them are 2 to 3 year RFPs. And we've already got that defined. And so it's like, wait, why do I need the destination marketing organization staff then for the next 3 years as well, if you already know exactly what every vendor relationship and every media buy and all the different things that are included are going to look like? No, you need to build an RFP that demonstrates that you have a competency and value as a team, and that you're looking for a strategic partner to help you with that. And the RFP has to give you the ability to use your strengths and value as an organization to evaluate the strengths and values of the organization you want to partner with, find that alignment, and then move forward together. And so I think you're spot on with your article. I read your article when it came out on Substack, and I just thought you nailed it. And so I really appreciated your commentary on it, because I think you and I are very aligned here on this topic.
Yeah, and the other thing to keep in mind too is, I've worked on all sides of the aisle. So I filled out RFPs as a media partner to agencies. I have fielded an RFP as a DMO. I've responded to 38 RFPs as an agency. And so I've kind of pieced together this, what I call the RFP industrial complex, if you will, from like each side of the aisle. And I just, again, I believe DMOs deserve better. And so going to your original, rant at the beginning, it is, how can we future-proof? How can we make sure that we're looking at solutions, not just filling out paperwork for paperwork's sake? And then how can we make the RFP process better for everyone involved? And so if you think about what an RFP is, at its best, it is stripping away all of the, who we are and this and that, and looking at price, right? Like, I think that is what we really get down to. If you want to look at an RFP from the best case scenario, it is price centric. At its worst, it is font sizes, it is government paperwork, it is getting things notarized, stuff that could really be done on the back end once a contract is actually landed. And so I think about one of the things I put in this article is industry resources. So I put, like, imagine 5 agencies are responding to an RFP, each spending 150 hours across the process to do a proper RFP. That's 750 hours plus a brain trust needed. So you're looking at an average agency rate about $112,000 for all the agencies, across all those agencies to respond. So that's kind of one side of it. I think as DMOs, if you have the capacity to really hone in your RFP process, don't write an RFP that is answering the question, is this person good at responding to an RFP? Write an RFP that gets to the heart and soul of the partner you're working with. Are they good at thinking? Like, what are their beliefs? Is this a team that we would want to work with? Could we build a relationship or rapport with this agency or this vendor partner? One of the other things to keep in mind too is, when you are, we'll stick to the agency example because I think for me and you, Adam, this would be more relevant. You're really signing a contract that could be anywhere from 1 to 5 years with these people. So do you get along with them? Do you trust their thought process? Do you trust their staff's availability and ability to execute? Are they going to be there at your beck and call? These are things that really need to be answered through this process. So let's kind of get away from...
Should they be there at your beck and call?
Right. Should they? Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing. Like, it is just, with DMOs, a lot of times when you have an agency partnership, they can be a little more nimble with your budget. So a lot of times they can be nimble, they can execute. So they can be a little more flexible with how they go about that. Is the agency that's responded to this RFP, do they even believe that? Like, do they believe they can be flexible? Do they believe that they can move the needle for your destination? Do they have familiarity with your destination? Do they care about the work that you're doing? And there's a lot of different ways to do this, but I don't think a font size restricted RFP is the way to do it. I think there's some better solutions there.
Yeah, well, and it's the reason that I included the monologue at the beginning for this episode specifically that I did, because I think another challenge that RFPs create is that destinations are building partnership proposals representing where the destination has been, as opposed to asking for proposals about where the destination needs to go.
Exactly.
And I think it would be incredibly valuable for every destination that's considering writing an RFP. And you and I actually both just got to see one that came in recently that I feel like you and I actually had a little bit of influence on, the destination that shared that RFP. And it was such a great RFP because it said, this is our strategic direction as an organization, and we're looking for a partner to fulfill the services related to this objective in the very best way possible, but we want you to tell us what you would do, as opposed to us dictating every individual tactic that goes on or that should go on in the marketing strategy, because then you're removing all the value the agency has the ability to provide to differentiate itself. And so I thought it was such a great RFP, and I thought RFPs are going to have to look a lot more like that one in order for this shift that I think needs to happen in the vendor-client relationship in the destination marketing space. In order for it to be successful, they're going to have to be open-ended, because what you're doing is you're evaluating the ideas of the organization who's proposing to work with you, as opposed to their ability to build a pretty PDF, like you said. And so, guys, I'm pretty excited. I think I've struck a nerve with something, and we've been talking a lot. You've heard on this show talking about the need for people to go from tactician to strategist. That's an effort that we've been working on inside of Brand Revolt for a long time. And one of the components of that is recognizing that the traditional agency of record engagement isn't exactly what we want to be chasing, because everybody's kind of chasing the same thing. We've found a really interesting success point with conversations where I've gone to destinations and I've said, hey, what's the unique challenge that you've wanted to solve for a long time, but your AOR hasn't had the chance to get to it, or that you and your team haven't had a chance to get to it? And it's resulted in some of the most fun and intellectually challenging conversations that I've had so far. We've had one destination that's got us building a LinkedIn strategy. Another destination asked for a corporate partnerships strategy. Another one asked us to build a Reddit strategy. And in exploring these different strategies that need to be developed, especially with all the changes that are happening in the world, there's not a destination out there that doesn't have one or two things that they haven't been able to tackle yet. And for us as an organization at Brand Revolt, we really are finding a lot of joy and excitement in the opportunity to tackle some of these problems and blaze trails that haven't yet been blazed. And so I wanted to invite all of you, if there's that nagging issue, that thing you've wanted to get to for a couple of years, but you just haven't had time to solve it, or if there's something that maybe one of your directors or C-level people have been asking you to solve, but it's been on your list, you haven't been able to get to it, or maybe an agency hasn't gotten you what you needed yet with that specific thing, give us a narrow strategy project opportunity, and I'm extremely confident that my team can really help dig into that without having to turn over the keys of the entire marketing plan to this agency. Instead, we can really tackle that narrow strategy for you and make sure that it's something that's effective, solves the problem, and can be built upon for the future. If this sounds interesting to you, hit me up at adam@thebrandrevolt.com. I would love to talk to you. I know that every single destination has something like this that they just need to get to, and I think we can help. adam@thebrandrevolt.com. I'm curious, Caleb, as you think about the RFP of the future, if you had to boil it down to like 4 or 5 components that should be in an RFP moving forward, what would those look like?
Yeah, I kind of laid it out in this article, but I think I really hit on 3, potential solutions that DMOs could look at. So one of them is kind of like a paid strategy sprint. So, have essentially, and also, well, I'll take a step back. I believe that DMOs should be able to send RFPs to who they want to send RFPs to. I don't think a DMO in Iowa should have to send out a broad RFP and then hope that someone in like New York picks it up. Like, I just think the DMOs, CEOs, CMOs, staff, they should understand who they want to send these RFPs to, and they should have the agency to do that on their own. So that's kind of number one. And the reason I say that is each of these solutions, I want that to be funneled through or filtered through that. I think DMOs, they can send their RFPs to who they want to. And sometimes that's good for all agencies and sometimes it isn't, but that should be on the DMO. First of all, is a paid strategy sprint. So essentially have a potential partner create like a 2 to 4 week engagement with defined parameters. So fee, scope, stakeholder access, collaborative sessions. Let them see how you think. Let the DMO see how you're going to take a defined budget and actually execute on that budget. Because if you think about this relationship, you can have all the best answers to respond to the RFP, but what are you actually going to do on day one? Kind of give a little bit of runway. And yes, it's going to take more time. And yes, it's going to take more effort on both sides with both parties. But what that's going to do is allow the DMO to see how you think and strategize. And it's going to allow the agency to really showcase and highlight the work that they're going to do on your behalf in the future. So this idea of like a paid strategy sprint, let them actually do some work.
Yeah, before you go to the second one, I just want everybody that's listening, what Caleb is saying is instead of just saying, can you put together a PDF, give a limited scope task to them and let them get paid, and they don't need to make a huge profit. They just need to cover their costs, and give them the paid opportunity to solve a problem for you so you can see how they think. And that's going to be very difficult to do if you send out an RFP, because one of the most important parts of strategy is asking the right questions. So why don't you give them the opportunity to ask you the right questions in order to see what they're capable of? And so I think I would probably, I don't know, negotiate a little bit with you on when should that paid engagement take place. Like I could see a justification for bringing in a larger number of RFP responses first and then taking the top 3 because somebody may surprise you that you weren't planning on, and you'll find that they made a really compelling argument or something like that. I like that. I think that still needs to have the opportunity to be there, but then you choose the top 3 and do this paid sprint that you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you wanted to kind of, and I guess this could have gone first, but if you wanted to look at how are we going to filter through to get to the agencies that we want to do a paid kind of sprint, the qualifications and chemistry model. So if you think about an RFP response, it doesn't need to be more than 10 pages. And I know that that's going to hurt a lot of people who love writing PDF decks. If you enjoy that, more power to you. But I think if you can't answer, these questions about who you are and what you believe in 10 slides, 75 slides is not going to help you. So essentially, look at that as a 10-page like RFQ, if you will. Let the DMO select 2 to 3 firms to invite in for like a working session, like an in-person working session, so they get to know you. They get to see if there is chemistry there. And then have Q&A with leadership. You can have Q&A with stakeholders, maybe if you have a marketing committee that's selecting the group. But essentially, actually put a little pen to paper. Have a whiteboard in the background and throw up ideas. Because at the end of the day, I don't necessarily believe this is always true, but an agency should, in some regard, be an extension of your team. So if that's the case, again, make sure you get along with them before you sign up for a 3-year contract or 5-year contract, because that is really, really important. But again, we look at dollars and cents, but a lot of times we don't look at relationship. And I think the relationship element is the most important element. So
is that your number 2?
Yeah, it's number 2. Yeah. So it'd be a 10-page RFQ response and get together and work on some stuff.
I love that. What's number 3?
So this is a fun one, and this is something I'm still working on right now. It's called the friendship economy model. So this is relationship-driven procurement, and this goes back to what I said earlier. DMOs, you guys know who you want to work with. We know each other. There's a lot of, we go to the same conferences. You've listened to panels. You know who thinks what, or you have some kind of idea. So essentially, let the DMO make the decision is kind of what I lean on. So let them send out RFPs to who they want to send out to. Again, this is going to have to differ, based on DMO to DMO. But if you're a county entity, put your trust in your DMO that they know who's best for them. So let there be open dialogue, long before there's a contract signed. Let there be like a long exploratory period where you get to know one another. It's kind of an extension of the second one. But I think at the end of the day, going to my last point, it's chemistry over dollars and cents. So let the DMO send the RFP to who they want to send it to, that group, and let it be flexible.
So I really like your 3 requirements for a good RFP. I think on the third one, I want to ask a couple of questions because the friendship economy is what drives business. Like relationships really do have so much to do with it. I think what that opens up the opportunity for, if I was a board member or something like that, is, oh, well, you just hired this person because they're your friend, right? So how do you leverage the friendship economy without the appearance of inequity or, nefarious activity or something like that?
Yeah, and just because someone's your friend doesn't mean you should work with them, by the way. I'm not saying that. I think it should be the way you look at it is a fair playing field. So you want to limit the playing field to who you want on your team. You don't want someone else telling you who needs to be on your team because of, this or that, right? So you are building your roster of partners you want to work with because you believe that they have the best possible use case for your DMO, and you as the DMO professional know that. And so, again, if you're friends with people from 3 or 4 agencies, great, then put those 3 or 4 agencies up against each other. And so I think that is more important than, just being like, hey, I want to work with this one agency because I'm friends with this person. Yeah. You will get in trouble doing that. And I think that that's a good thing. I don't think there should be too much overlap or too much nepotism in this industry. But at the same time, you guys have been in this industry long enough. You know which partners are worth their snuff and which ones aren't. So give the DMO a little bit of agency in that decision-making process. And I believe that model will allow for more creativity and more competition if done correctly.
And I think it goes back a little bit, not to try to tie it back into my monologue at the beginning, but you have to very clearly, as a destination, understand the value you're hoping to get out of this future partner before you even put pen to paper on writing the RFP. So many people say, well, I need an RFP. They ask their 5 best friends in the industry to send them their most recent RFPs. They Frankenstein it together and didn't ask the question, hold on, what are the outcomes and value specifically that we're looking for from these partners, as opposed to the services that we need from them? Because you can get the services anywhere.
Yes.
Do they align with your vision? Do they understand the value you expect them to provide? And are they committed to delivering on it as a partner? And if you go through the process of understanding that before you even put pen to paper on the RFP, I think it's going to be so much more clear, not only who you should send your RFP to, but also who you're going to select in the end. And I think it's a much better process for partner selection.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, again, that's a great question to ask. Why? Are you just filling this RFP because you have to do it every 5 years and you know you're going to select the incumbent? Okay, well then let's avoid that process altogether if possible. Do you truly want a strategist that's going to come on board and assist you in activating what you believe the next 5 years of your destination marketing organization needs to look like? Okay, well then let's start with that. I can't tell you how many RFPs I've gotten. Y'all just hit Command F and make sure that the other destination that you're getting it from, that their name isn't in there. But I can tell it's a Frankenstein RFP. And I'll be honest, DMOs, I love y'all, but that's a waste of your time and that's a waste of our time.
I have found destinations who actually left the name of the other destination they copied it from in the RFP when they Frankensteined it together.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that has happened to me. And that's the thing, like, you guys deserve better. We deserve better. At the end of the day, we are all trying to increase the validity and the productivity of this industry. If we look at the playing field like that, then build your roster around that, right? We don't need, don't just send out an RFP to send out an RFP. If there is a procurement, again, why does the procurement cycle have to be every 1 to 5 years? I'm sure someone's got an answer. I'm sure someone will send me an email. That's fine. But if you have something working, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Don't waste everyone's time. I put in this article too, Adam. There's the cost no one's talking about, which is the cost to the DMO. Whenever you send out an RFP, I've been heeing and hawing about being on the agency side, but when you are a DMO, you guys are already limited for time. You're already limited for staff. You've got a million things going on, and we all have that one board member that we have to deal with, right? That always has an emergency or always has something bad to say about what you're doing. There's no reason that you guys need to be putting out these things unless you truly are looking to make a change. If you are, then you're kind of wasting your time because, guys, when I have sent out 135-page RFPs before, I'm so sorry if you had to read those from me, but you have an entire committee doing that work. You have yourselves, you've got staff allocation and time. You're slowing down your momentum to do this. Make sure you need it. Make sure you understand why you're sending out the RFP beforehand.
Yep.
Because, again, the industry at large, we are all I truly believe we're all solutions oriented. We're all trying to solve problems. We're all trying to provide value. Don't put something in your way just for the sake of put something in your way. Like, don't be your own worst enemy. Don't get yourself caught in your own red tape. Yeah, just that.
Great
that
advice.
to me is very important. Yep.
Caleb, where's your next vacation?
My next vacation. So every year, my family and I, we try to rotate through like Myrtle Beach, shout out to Stuart, and Wilmington, North Carolina. So shout out to Megan. So we love going there. They're just both great places for me to take my family. I've got at the time of recording this, a 1-month-old, so I don't know if we'll be going on vacation this year, but we look forward to getting back out there on the beach when we get a chance to.
Awesome. Caleb, if people want to learn more about you, especially in the career transition that you're in, moving from one organization to another, do you have contact info yet? How can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, just reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's Caleb Sullivan on LinkedIn. We also have a podcast that Adam mentioned here, but it's called Give Me Some Good News. And if you're interested in that, you can find us on YouTube or on Spotify. And you can email me at goodnews4tourism@gmail.com. And I don't have my new contact info for the new job yet, but I will be working with Datafy. So reach out to me if you guys want to work with someone who loves solving problems. That's what I love doing.
I love it. Caleb, thanks for taking the time today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And y'all have a great time, and I'm sure I'll see you at a conference soon.
Awesome. And thanks everybody for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to leave us a rating or a review. It helps us continue to bring you amazing guests like Caleb. Thanks everybody, and have a great week. Okay, 2026 has already been a whirlwind of travel for me. I've had the opportunity to speak at several conferences. I'm getting up early in the morning to go speak at another conference. It has been an incredible ride, and I'm really grateful to all the conferences that have had me come speak. The second half of the year, as of right now, I've got a few speaking openings, and if you or your event, whether it's a governor's conference or you're an association, if you're looking for a speaker to come talk about the issues that are facing our industry today, I'm confident I can come in and give your attendees a great experience. So if you'd like me to speak at your conference, my email is adam@thebrandrevolt.com. Hit me up, and I'll see if there's a place in my schedule to be able to attend your conference and provide value to your attendees.